I'm Vin.
I'm sorry.
If you would like to get your song reviewed, dear listener, there's the Filthy Capitalist option. As Sorry says, 125 gets you straight to the head of the line. You don't have to be a part of the alliance. You don't have to be part of the group.
Wait a minute.
And the biggest thing is you don't have to wait. You hop, skip, and jump right in front of everybody. 125 gets you there. You do that 3 times, and you get mashed down to the $75 rate for perpetuity.
Yes!
Also, there is a band review option. So if you've got a band and you're trying to get your band some exposure, hit me up at sorry@gmail.com, and I'll show you the details about how to pull that off.
You can also jump on Patreon, and there is a option on the tiers to be able to get your band reviewed. Yep. Obviously, we can't lie to you, so we can't guarantee a positive review. Get what you get.
It's just rubbish.
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 That's British for garbage.
My favorite is the community option. $1 at the gate gets you in at Patreon. You get to join an alliance. The alliance joins their points together, and that helps determine what songs that we do.
The alliances hang out on Discord.
Message me on Patreon to get the link.
And they do all kinds of other cool things. They do Minecraft, Dungeons and Dragons.
Yeah. It's really a community within the community. Anybody can go in the village, facebook.com/Vin and Siri. There's 160,000+ people on the channel. What's cool about the Discord is that it offers a real opportunity for community connection, friendship, that type of thing.
And it's on Discord, so if you're not a Facebook person, it's for you.
You start off at $1.
Right.
Plus you get exclusives. Sori and I are working on a song. So the first 15 seconds of that was on Patreon. Also, at $15 tier and above, when we actually debut the video, they're going to be there live with us. There you are, dear listener.
Buy our merch.
Buy our merch indeed.
Buy our merch.
A child shall lead them. Dear listener, this is, I don't know how to pronounce this name because it's spelled EILY. So I'm going to say EILY or EILY.
Yeah.
It's by the band Too Close to Touch. It's for the big homie. Who's the big homie that asked for this?
This is for John.
This is for the big homie John. So
not to be confused with John Doe.
Okay. So we're gonna get right into this joint. Should be interesting. Apparently, it's about the singer's sister. I think. I have
this feeling it's gonna be sad. I feel like we're walking into a tearjerker here.
Having said that, dear listener, let's try it. Eli, Too Close to Touch. Ellie or Eli.
I would
or
say
Eiley.
Ellie.
Let's go.
This was all part of your plan. Start explaining, crafted from hope. In hospital bed, she's gone. And honestly, you say I tell to come and choose to what I love most. Instead, it's not okay with the one I'll close. You was mine. You get to know. 3 years is too quick to die. Take me instead. You loved. I only get to my worthless to the world. You're innocent and pure. God, why didn't you choose me over her? Tell me she's listening as I search for signs of why I'm standing alive with this soul at 6 feet of turkey fill. So why don't you just let me in the eyes, say it straight to my face? One time the mandate to come from our place. You was mine. You get to know. 3 years is too quick to die. Take me instead. You loved. I only get to my after me. How am I supposed to deal with this? Why did she die when I'm the one deserving it? And what the hell am I to tell my little sisters to ease her tears when they tell me that they miss her? And what about my mother and my father? They lost a child and deep inside they willed her. God, I'd do anything to ease the pain that I do the chest of my brothers and sisters. She was mine. She was mine. What did we do to make you take her from our lives? She was mine. She was mine. Oh God, what did we do? Take me and stay. Loved. I only get to my worthless to the world. You're innocent and pure. God, why didn't you choose me? Take me and stay. Loved. I only get to my worthless to the world. You're innocent and pure. God, I question your judgment. You're innocent and pure. I'm worthless to the world. Tell me why you picked me over her.
Ah,
God, I knew it. I knew I should have got some tissues. God,
that's
painful song.
fucking difficult to deal with. That's a tough one. Mm-hmm. That's a yeah. So yeah, I mean that's for his sister, obviously.
Right.
I mean, jeez.
God. I thought at first that it was the parent, and so I was thinking, I wonder if there's any, like, because we always look at it as like, how could God have taken like the child? But then, like, I wonder if it would be helpful at all to like flip it and say, well, you know, not that God picks like that, but like, if your child had to live without you at a young age, or you had to live without them, somebody has to bear the pain. Maybe knowing, like, as a parent, like, you're bearing the pain instead of the child bearing the pain, maybe that would bring a smidge of comfort. I really don't know. I mean, I think there's the in the Bible it talks about I think it was Herod had gone through and it killed a bunch of kids, and it said Rachel weeping for her children, she refused to be comforted because they were gone. They had all died. Well, her children. So the idea, like, she refused to be comforted because she was in so much pain. And I think that is probably a pretty clear depiction of what, like, it's hard. I had a miscarriage, and that was very painful. And even years later, it's still, you know, it still hurts. But this, like a 3-year-old, ooh. See, Orion, he's 2. He's almost 3. I can't even. Whew. And like he said, like, he's coming from the brother perspective and how he felt. And then when he talked about the parents, and he said, like, that they must be withering inside, you know?
Yeah.
Because I think that you can't show that degree of sorrow to your kids if you're a parent, you know? But at the same time, like, how... Ugh.
Yeah, I mean, you know, this is one of those big sort of questions. You know, if God is good, then why is there all this pain and suffering in the world?
Yeah.
How can you do this to a 3-year-old child? Mm-hmm. But it seems to me that we're when we ask those questions, we're kind of living in two worlds, and we have to decide which world we're going to live in. So, for example,
Okay.
if you say there's a God, then that means that God is the one that gave you that child. And if God takes that child to be back with himself, the child is in a better situation than they were when they were here. And from that vantage point, you could say, okay, God is still good, but this hurts me here.
Right. Well, that's why I was saying, like, if one had to be here and one had to go.
Right. But it seems like there isn't the hope side of it. There's just the blame side of it, which I understand. But it's kind of like, did God have something to do with it? If he did, then your sister is with God. And the real question should be, how do I make sure that when it's my time to go, that I have a reunion? Right? But it seems like it's God took my sister and she's just in the ground and that's it. Because that's all he talks about is like the 6 feet. And I completely understand that. And I understand the pain that would come. If I truly believe that all of my dead were just in the ground and that's it, then yeah. But the Jesus tells us to mourn, but not as though we didn't have hope.
Right.
And so for me, and I mean, anybody that's kind of been in the channel understands that, I've had, some loss, whether it be friends, family, coworkers in multiple different contexts or whatever. And so people, I've had to really do a lot of thinking about death. My mom was damn near 5-6 months pregnant when she miscarried my sister. And our family never talks about that. I'm almost certain that if I went to my brothers and talked about that miscarriage, it would take me a minute to jog their memory. It's not something we ever talked about. She lost a child. She had one conversation about it around a table one time. And when she talked about losing the baby, this is like, I don't know, 6-7 years later, we were around the table and she talked about how she was, hemorrhaging or whatnot. She passed out and then she woke up screaming that she wanted her baby. And she was so disassociated that she thought somebody else in another room was saying, I want my baby. And then it took her a while to realize that it was her. And even when she told that story, I did not associate it with, I thought it was, in my mind, it was something that happened like 30, 40 years ago. I didn't associate, no, that was the baby that you saw. That was the one she was talking about. So like, that's how much we didn't talk about it. And that's how much it was gone from our minds. So like, I know, like, definitely my little brother, definitely not, but I'm sure I'm going to text my brother right now and say, hey, you remember mom had a miscarriage? Like, but and then my aunt, she had a miscarriage, and obviously everybody knows that we're pro-life, but I think the longer you know somebody, the worse it is, right? So like losing a 3-month-old, losing a 3-week-old, a 3-month-old, and a 3-year-old are different. Mm-hmm. They're different degrees of suffering. Mm-hmm. And
different types, I think. More.
Yeah, because you see their little personalities, you see their likes and dislikes, you see their, Orion has to have his hat backwards. He has to have a certain kind of nookie when he goes to bed. He
goes when he wants me to pick him up.
There's a lot of little things about him
Yeah.
that you start to see at 2 that you didn't see at 1.
Right.
And so and really 3 is like probably one of my favorite ages because they're still bad as hell, but they're manageable. They're manageable at 3, and it's really fun, and they get very quirky, and it's such an amazing age, and they're talking and they're jumping and they're doing all this, and like to lose them at 3.
Oh God! Oh my God!
Is that's gotta.
And when they're 3, I find that Orion is almost 3, but he's big for his age. So like when they're 3, they're almost like they switch. Like he's switching now. When I look at him, I don't think baby anymore.
Right.
I think tiny human. Like
yeah.
it's exactly, he's just miniature, and he's looking a little bit bigger in his little baby chairs and stuff, and he doesn't want to sit in a high chair anymore. Things like that. Like, I'm like, oh jeez, I can't even imagine.
Yeah, he starts off the song
bed like that.
Yeah,
Oh,
and like once you have, I mean, because I've lost so many people, like it keeps me up at night, literally, like thinking about my kids, and I do a lot of wrestling with God, and like that line, like she's mine, like she was mine, like that's a deep line, bro.
Yep.
That's a really, really deep line because it was Chuck Swindoll. I remember I was sitting in my bed. That's when I was playing atheist, and I would turn down the volume really low because I was still listening to my Christian radio, and it's Chuck Swindoll, this kind of old preacher, and he was talking about how one of the lessons he's learned over time. He said, "Keep everyone with an open hand."
Ugh.
He said, "Please keep everybody with an open hand." And he was just talking about the fragility of life. And, regardless of how people feel about this COVID situation, like, it's a crazy thing. Like, people that I've known and, you worked with and all that, and to, like, see them just gone.
Yeah.
And
Right.
and it's crazy now to experience death with people because you actually see the progression, whereas 10, 15 years ago it wasn't like that. But you could see people update, she's at the hospital.
Yeah.
And you see the ups and downs because,
Yeah.
especially if somebody's in the hospital, like, very rarely is it just... It's usually, there's a lot of peaks and valleys, and you hang on to whatever. So one of my coworkers, his wife, she just recently, and like, there's a prayer chain for her, and then like she's at 87% with the respirator, and then she shot up and did a great job, and and he was like, yeah, everybody, your prayers are working, keep praying, yada yada yada, and it's like, oh, okay, and then
whenever that happens,
the next two posts, she's dead.
Whenever that happens, like where there's like that high before it goes really low, I always feel like it's like God letting them have that time to get things in order.
Yeah.
But
yeah, and like I said, it's unfortunate there's all these political over and undertones to COVID, but the point is like, you gotta hold, that's one of the things. It's tough, you hold it you hold people with an open hand because you never know, especially with your children. With your children, you get this real possessive. They're my kids. Yeah. And so many times the Lord's told me, like, no, bro, they're on loan to you, bro.
Yeah, honey, can you get me the charger for this? It might be in my bedroom. I don't know. Oh, yeah. The base is there. I just need the cord. Okay. Thank you.
He's like, little bro, they're on loan to you. They're on loan to you. And I've had a lot of wrestling matches with the Almighty.
It's a very hard thing to...
And the thing is, if like God is loving, if he is as loving as we think he is, that means he loves our kids more than we love them.
Yep.
And he has his reasons. And one of the things that people have to understand is, a lot of times when something happens like that, we always say, how could this happen to me? Or why did this happen to me?
Yeah.
And you have to go there because the Bible goes there. You have so many, Job, obviously, and you have all these other portions in the Bible, not just Job, where people saying, how could this happen to me? And one of the things that was a mind-blowing concept to me was Paul. He's in prison. He's about to get his head chopped off. And he says, I bear all things for the sake of the elect. Mm-hmm. And it was like, wow. Like, one of the reasons we suffer is for other people. So, for example, this very song, the question of the song answers itself in that obviously this song has had a massive impact on a lot of people who could relate to it.
Yeah,
Right?
absolutely. For sure.
And
For
so
sure.
there have been a lot of people who listen to this song, and this song has carried them through.
Mm-hmm.
Because I've said over and over again, modern Christian music does not know how to lament.
Mm-hmm.
And a lament is a sorrow, it's the anger, it's the confusion, it's the pain. This is a legitimate lament. And because modern Christian music, we can't do that. It's got to be happy, clappy, yada, yada, yada. Or, I mean, if you're sad about something, it's because you're so holy and you sinned, and so you sinned against God and you're so sad. That's the reason you're sad. But you're not sad because your grandfather died. You're not sad because the car accident. No, it's that. And I'm sure there's Christian music that does communicate that, but it's not going to go on K-Love or whatever. And so God is not relegated to the Christian music industry to write lyrics. Korn, Slipknot, Marilyn Manson, whatever, say what you want. They kept me from killing myself and other people. I mean, they did. Mm-hmm. Because there was no Christian outlet for anger and rage and all the rest of it. There's a hell of a lot in the Bible. That's the reason why it says, "Oh, Babylon, happy is he who dashes your children against the rocks." That's not, God didn't command people to do that. He didn't say bash their babies against, but that's in the Bible. Why? Because it's a song of rage. Mm-hmm. Because they just saw that happen to their own children. And when human beings see that, there's rage, there's seething anger, and you want that to happen to other people. And so
to pay for what
that's
they did.
why that's in the. But you can't make a Christian song about that nowadays.
No.
So Slipknot has to say it. So God uses Slipknot. Says, okay, I'm going to use these guys because you guys don't get it.
Because this, if songs like this was in the church, then maybe people would have a little bit more of an understanding or feeling toward people that have gone through difficulties. You know what I mean? Like, so I was reading.
Yeah, I agree.
So we've got.
I agree.
JC, he's on the Patriots team. I think it's his younger sister, I believe, wrote a book. It's called Broken Peace, and it's got a picture of like a vase kind of fallen over, broken, but it's spelt like peace, like you've lost your peace, you're not at peace anymore. And it's just her story of how she lost her baby, and it's. I didn't have a miscarriage in the same way that she lost her child. You know, like she had a miscarriage also, she was further along. This situation wasn't the same, but there was something that I could connect to while I was reading it, where it was like that sort of like camaraderie, like known pain, I guess you could say. Hers was way worse than mine was. And the lack of support, though, was still a common theme that I found in her book and in lots of other people that talk about it. Just seems like one thing that she kept repeating was nobody would look in her eyes, and they wouldn't look at her because her pain was too great and people didn't really know what to do or say. And I thought, how many times have I done that to somebody when I knew that like things were very rough, to not like look at them because I didn't really know what to do, and to realize that everybody is doing the same thing. And so because of that, the person feels even more alone than they felt before because they can't make even eye contact with people. So, you know, these situations, like what you said, these songs are necessary. And the way that he sung the notes, especially like the "she was mine" part, and like when he was saying, "I'm worthless to the world, you're innocent and pure," like just the way that he was singing it, like there was so much feeling. He captured his heart and his soul into this song. And to me, I love this song, but I couldn't listen to it again. It's so sad, but I definitely I would love to hear more music by them, that's for sure.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, and you know, again, he talks about the purity of his sister and how he's just a consumer, you know, and it's really funny because, you know, there's this running discussion on our channel about are people basically good or whatever. Mm-hmm. And
yeah, they did that bingo game with it. Sid Major.
Look, man, you know, I think one of the worst things you could do is go to that guy and say, no, you're a really good guy. You're a really, really good dude.
Yeah.
Like, he's trying to reconcile the fact, and see, this is one of the things, is that we're so busy trying to, like, defend ourselves and act like we're, like, these awesome, great people who deserve all the good things in life, that it makes it so that we don't get to ask the ultimate question. Because the question he's asking is a monster question, which is, why is a scummy person like me still around? Mm-hmm. And a person that's as good as pure as my 3-year-old sister, why is she gone? Mm-hmm. And the answer to that question will get you crucified. Like, there's a reason Jesus got crucified. And the answer to that question is, my little bro, if you gave your sister a couple more years, she'd be like you. And if I reversed the clock, you were once a 3-year-old. Mm-hmm. And the hard truth is, all of us at varying degrees are on a scale between that 3-year-old and Hitler. That's just a fact.
Yep.
Hitler was once 3 years old.
Right.
And so we have to really contend and say, maybe God knows information that we're not privy to. Mm-hmm. I'm saying maybe for, obvious reasons.
Right.
And but I love what he did there, because he's really asking the ultimate question. It's not, and it's hard to hear. It's not, how could God take this person? It's how could God leave me here? That's the question.
Yeah.
And the answer is the same for both of them, because the Lord is gracious and compassionate, slow to anger, and rich in love. Maybe he took that 3-year-old to stop her from doing something crazy, and so that he could be with her forever. And maybe you're around, bro, to stop somebody from killing themselves. I say it all the time. We've done like 2,000 videos plus, and a couple people have sent us emails and said, hey, I was going to kill myself or whatever. Mm-hmm. Well, the reason that they didn't is because we went through a lot of shit, and I've lost a lot of people, and I shared it. And because I went through that, other people were able to say, this kid seems to be able to kind of meander through life, not perfectly, but it didn't kill him. Okay, maybe I can do another day. And we've had these conversations, and so it's like, it seems senseless in the moment. There are a lot of things that just seem completely senseless to me in the moment. Yeah. Why do I have to see this or whatever? But it's helped other people, and if it's saved one life, that's an entire family tree. That's a branch from a family tree that you, in some small way, were able to keep intact. And so now this guy, he's able to simultaneously honor his sister, honor God, because look, one of the best moments you can have as a father is when your kid is hurt and he runs to you and he does this thing, he bashes his hands into your chest, but as long as he's coming to you, that's the biggest honor you could have as a father, man, because that's saying, one, I can come to you for comfort, and two, you're strong enough to handle this. Mm-hmm. Like I don't have to like manage God's emotions.
Right. Yeah.
Which is it's the impression that a lot of Christians have, is that we have to manage God's emotions so we can't say bad things about him or whatever. Mm-hmm. And so he honored his sister, he honored God, he honored his parents, he honored his brothers and sisters, and I am certain this song has brought quite a few people back from the brink.
Oh, please.
And has provided solace to people.
Yeah.
And so it's like, I was in the depths of my, whatever one time in one of my wrestlings with the Almighty, and he said to me, son, he says, what's true of the head is true of the body. And that's coded language. And long story short, he brought me to Isaiah 53, and the famous phrase, at least in my life, it's been a famous phrase, out of the anguish of his soul he shall see and be satisfied. Mm-hmm. And it was talking about the suffering that Jesus endured, not just physically, but out of the anguish of his soul, which is where a lot of this pain was coming from. There's soulish and spiritual pain in this, but it says, out of the anguish of his soul he shall see and be satisfied. And God said to me that when Jesus was on the cross, he kept saying to himself, This is going to be worth it. This is going to be worth it. This is going to be worth it. And then obviously at the end of Jude, where it says to him who is able to keep you from falling and present you unstained, right? With great joy. And so Jesus is suffering this unimaginable pain, physical, spiritual, soulish pain. But the byproduct of that, the intentional byproduct of that pain and suffering is that he's going to have great joy, and the joy is going to outdo the pain so much so that he says, I'd have done this all over again. It was all worth it. Mm-hmm. And so God said to me, when you come to the end of all of this and you actually get to see all of it, you're going to say the same thing. You're going to say, I wouldn't change a centimeter. You wouldn't change anything. Mm-hmm. And that's something that I hold in faith. I'm not going to sit here and lie and say, oh yeah, I'm glad that I lost my mom. Like, ridiculous. By the way, you didn't do that. You know, like when you were, Soraya was actually there when when I got the news that my mother died, because I was actually scheduled to go on a trip. I mean, I literally had my bags in my hands when my brother called me and told me. He said, take a seat. And I knew exactly I knew it was about my mom. And I said, just tell me, man. And we were trying to get confirmation or whatever. And she was literally there because she, you know, they used to take me to the airport. And she made me an egg. She goes, you want an egg? I was like, yeah, man. Because I knew, like, you were trying to, you know, you're trying to be there for me. There's nothing you could do.
Nope.
And you guys, you weren't used to that. You know what I'm saying? Like, just random shit happening that's just horrific and permanent. You know what I'm saying? Like,
I was so mad at God.
Yeah. Yeah.
I went outside and I started chopping ice like a mad woman.
Yeah, and I wasn't angry at God about my mom at all. Like, I
was like, how could you do this? He's been through everything that he's been through. It's not enough? Now this?
Yeah, it was a different type of situation, but you know, I mean, so my point is, like, you didn't do that thing, you know, like you were a very engaged friend at the time, and you both were. I'm very grateful for that. Shout out to the homie. But yeah, man, it's difficult, and I almost feel bad for people who've never had. We were just thrown into it, you know, my entire conscious life. There's always been horrible tragedies and chaos and whatever, and I almost feel bad for people who didn't experience that at a young age, because it's going to happen. The older you get, the higher the chances are that you're going to get a horrible phone call or a horrible doctor's visit. And it's almost like, damn, like you're not kind of prepared for it, you know? So
yeah, they used to say, like, oh, it's good for you to get pets for your kids, and they can understand what death is about because their pets will die and stuff like that. But I don't know really how. I just think that it doesn't matter. Like, pain is pain and death is death. So whether you experience it when you're a kid or, like, obviously, like, there's the horror of, like, oh my gosh, you're so young and you're experiencing the results of death. But then there's also, oh, you've gone your whole life without having to experience that, and here it is, you're older now, and it's like hitting you. Like, I don't think that having it when you're young helps prepare you for when you're, but I don't know, like, because I haven't experienced a lot of. It's
interesting because I remember 4th grade. We were reading about John Henry. John Henry is, you know, this guy, and it's man versus machine basically, and he was hammering, you know, the thing, and then he was racing the machine, and then he beat the machine. And I was like really into the story. It was cool, you know, it was a black guy. All right, cool. And then, like, he died at the end of the story. Like, I guess he overloaded his heart and he died. And that fucked me up for about 6 months, man. And you know how obsessive I get. And, like, I guess there's to this day, like, I can't read anything about him. There was a John Henry movie. I can't watch anything about him. Like, because it brings me back to me being in 5th grade or 4th grade or whatever in Florida. And like, it just killed me, man. It was just, then there was this Janet Jackson song.
Well, why did it kill you so much? Do you think, like,
it was a shock?
Really relatable to that character? You know what I mean? Because you're like that. You'd do something like that.
Nah, I had no I didn't feel any relation to the character. It was just the fact. It's the same. There was another story with this dog. It was the same situation. This dog was like a sled dog or something like that, and the kid was sick or some shit like that, and they had to get some special thing, and so the dog went too, and the kid jumps on to rescue his sister, and they made it, but then the dog's heart burst. That also messed me up. But it was an animal, but it was a shock of it, because it was like, it was the next line, his heart burst. Like, that was the line. And it was just like, wait, what?
Thank you for the gentle.
And the other kids apparently are familiar with the story, and they were like laughing or whatever, and I was like, wait, what? What happened? The dog died? And they're like, yeah, the dog died. And everybody's like, I was like, yeah, that messed me up for a while. I went home, I always had my mom, she'd make me my egg. She saw I was sad or whatever. She'd like walk me through it. But yeah, so I'm not sure either about like, I don't know. Like, I think like if there was like a warning, like, look, there's something tragic that happens in the story, but it was such a shock. And it was the same thing with John Henry. It was like such a shock the way it happened. It was like he died at the end, and it was like he wasn't dying. He just boom, he was gone.
Yeah.
And there was I forgot what the name of it was a Janet Jackson song, and it was playing at it was popular at the same time. It was kind of like it was a minor key song, and then my brother used to sit in his room and play Janet Jackson. It was just horrible. So every time I heard that song, it reminded me of John Henry for some strange reason, and I just go in my room and just sit there and be like mega depressed. Try to read my Encyclopedia Brown books or whatever. So yeah, I'm not sure about like introducing kids to like real life death. You know what I'm saying? Like, I mean,
it doesn't make. Honestly, there's probably if I sat down and talked to a professional, there's probably some reason for this. But when all of my pets died when I was a kid, it bothered me so much until the last one. I said, that's it. And I know I did something internally to switch that, because it was way, way too painful. When we lost the cat, and I was crying outside and calling for the cat, and the cat usually came and had a little bell on its little thing. And I think to find out that the neighbor had been killing the pets, it just was so senseless and so pointless. You know what I mean? Like, if your cat is outside and it gets hit by a car, it feels like, well, what are you going to do about the random nature of that? When the cat ran out, It's not like somebody was like, hey, I'm going to go friggin' run over somebody's cat. And they go, it's not like that. They're just going for a drive. The cat runs out. The cat gets hit. It was an accident. But to know that, like, he poisoned them and that they died in his house, like, he would capture them and then feed them hamburger with
people are sick,
whatever
man.
in it, and then the cat would just like die, and it apparently is an extremely painful death. So as the organs are shutting down, I guess is what he had done. And then like we were searching all over the neighborhood for this cat, and like his trash can smelled like fucking death. I was this close to dumping his whole trash can over because I was convinced the cat was in it. And now that I'm an adult, I'm like, the cat probably was in it. But it's like with like that sort of pointless. But I think that there's always going to be like a part of me that's like very, very, very sad about the loss of the pets in my life, especially the dog. The dog that I really like that dog.
I just got I was talking recently to one of our close friends in the channel, and she had to put her cat down. And the cat, it was like a feral cat, and her mom adopted it.
Yeah.
And then they civilized it or whatever, and been with her for 15 years.
Yeah.
I mean, that's as long as Dorian.
Right.
And 15 and a half, I mean, that's 16 years. And I'm like, I used to trivialize the pet thing, but especially now when you think about all the isolation everybody has to endure and all the rest of it, and people who are not understood by society, and not everybody can just go out there and make friends with people. Mm-hmm. Like, you know what I'm saying? Not everybody and the other thing is, not everybody gets the opportunity to care for someone who's dependent on them. Mm-hmm. And that's actually, it's kind of like exhausting as a parent, but at the same time, it's like, it's a beautiful aspect of human nature that not everybody gets the opportunity to do that. So a pet is someone that's like dependent on you, especially, you civilize it, and and you got to show them some unconditional love and things of that nature. And like, people need that outlet So I never really understood.
They need the outlet and the inlet.
Yeah.
Because a pet has sort of an unconditional, with the cat, you know that the cat's gonna go around like it's got some attitude, probably. That's the cats do that thing, but they love you. They have their way of giving you your props. You know?
Yeah.
Where a dog's gonna get all happy, and that from the like whenever I left and I came home, I knew my animals were gonna be just thrilled to see me.
Yeah,
and it was a nice feeling. Like, I think. Because it doesn't matter how stressful, how horrible your day is, like the pet's there. Like when I was going through my divorce, I can't tell you how many times I made that dog sit there so I could hug him. I hugged that dog a lot.
Yeah. He'd
just sit there.
Yeah. So anyway, rest in peace to Shorty. Damn. That's
and the family.
That's a rough one.
You
What do
never
you
get
get
over that. It's an 11 because I almost silent counted it because it was pretty painful, but it's an 11 because he did such a great job on the song, and he didn't skimp, I think, on those feelings, like kind of letting the feelings come out in the song. They came out really well, and the song, I think it's very important because we've said this before, in this day and age, there's not a whole lot of support, I think, or like understanding for people that lose unborn children. And even though that's not the topic of this, I still think it carries with it that
100%.
That energy that you can say, okay,
100%.
It just it's not the best one I've seen on the topic, but it's certainly very good.
There you are. Yeah, it's a
Vinny wrote one, that's why I said it's not the best. His is the best.
It's a silent count for me. Because I just think it's anyway, it's a silent count for me.
I'm with you. I'm with it.
Anyway, there you are, dear listener. Having said that, Vin out.
Sorry out.
Gone.